Hi, this is Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I've got this pretty Batik Boutique card to share with you. Let's get started. For this card, we're going to use the Batik Boutique stamp set. You may remember this from a class that I offered last spring. I've got a piece of basic white and one of the stamps and my Flirty Flamingo ink pad. And I'm going to ink this. And stamp. Let's move this out of the way, close this up. And then I've got Calypso Coral to bring in. And the little tulip-shaped stamp. And I just want the flower and not the leaves underneath. And I'm putting that right down in the center here. Okay, and then I'm going to clean this off real quickly because I do actually want the leaves, but I'd like to stamp them in Old Olive. So now I'm going to take my stamp and carefully place it on the edge of my Old Olive ink pad. And then stamp off over here on the side. My Old Olive ink pad has been recently re-inked, and so it's very dark. Okay, so there are my leaves in Old Olive. And then I want these little leaves in Old Olive as well, so let me clean that stamp off. And we're going to stamp. Okay, and put these all aside now. And then I've got this stemmed flower that I want just the stem and the leaves and not the flower. So I'm going to do the same thing with the edge of my ink pad. And that way I don't have to worry about masking. That kind of does the masking for me. Okay, so now I've got my stem. And then we're going to do a little bit of coloring here before die cutting. So let me bring in my Stampin' Blends. I'm going to start with my Flirty Flamingo, and then I've also got Calypso Coral, and we're just going to use our stamped colors to be our guide. Let me take my brush tips for these, and it won't matter if we're a little bit out of the lines here, starting with the dark and then brushing in my light. I'm just going to fill this whole petal here. And then come here. And I'm not going to worry about that leaf there that I've just colored over. And then coloring around with my light. And let's turn this and coming in here with the dark. And I just want to come up a little bit with the light all around where that leaf is. And again. And you'll notice that as this dries, the color shifts just a little bit. So it goes on, I'm going to say, with a little more orange tone and dries to a pinker tone. And then let's go in again around this leaf here. And I'm bringing the light all the way up around that leaf. And let's continue. I find it easier to do my coloring if I turn the piece that I'm coloring, especially if I'm demonstrating. Okay, and just continuing to blend that darker shade, and then we've got this last bit through here with the dark, and then blending with my light. Okay, and then I'm going to go back where this is dried here and just give another little stroke over some of these detail lines. Probably should be doing that with, let's do that with the bullet tip. And for a little finer control. You can layer on more color and it won't blend once you've let it dry. So that's what I'm doing there. Let's put my Fleur de Flamingo out of the way and grab my Calypso Coral over here, and I'm going to use the brush tips of these at least to start. So I'm coming down here at the base with the dark, and then coming up with the light just over this shape here. And again, if you need finer control, you can use bullet tips or add a finger, and that helps to give you a little better control. Just taking my time with that. That's also another control. Instead of working quickly, take your time with it. Okay, so I want a little darker shade here. And I'd like a little darker shade here. Okay, and then we're ready for some die cutting. Oh, not quite. Let's color our leaves here in our Old Olive. And I'm going to use the dark Old Olive and light Old Olive bullet tips. So let's start down here with the dark and blend that out. Okay, and then we're going to add dark around more of this piece. And then come in here with the light. And that little line like of the Old Olive, we're going to blend that a little bit, but not completely, because we do want that to show, not so much as a line, but as a darker bit of shading here above that first bit. Okay, so let's do that again over here. We're going to start with the the dark down here, and then use our light to blend. And I'm just pulling it on up in here. Okay, and then same thing, let's do the dark, and I'm going to go all the way around this little scallop here, just like on the other side. And then lightly blend that so that we keep the bulk of the shadow. Give it one more little turn here so that I can bring that closer. Okay, so there are our leaves. Now let me take this and die cut and we'll move on to the next bit. Okay, so I've got my die cut flower and my leaves, and I cut out our two little green leaves that I stamped in the extra image. Now that I have this die cut, I do want to finish some coloring here. Let me just take my light flirty flamingo, and I want to finish coloring in this arc here. I am going to leave the white border around. You do not have to, if you prefer that it not have the white border. And then down here in this flower, you notice all these little dots, and I think they need a little help to show up. And so I'm going to take, yes, I did get my bullet tip, and the dark Calypso coral, and we're just going to hopefully lightly just touch on each one of these to give them a little oomph to show up. And that finger helps to, with the control. And I can put them back in where I have colored over them in places. And let's go for another one here. I hope I did not dip my head down in front of you while I was doing that. And while I have this piece, then I'm going to go ahead and adhere these two little green leaves before I lose them on my paper. So just using a little multi-purpose glue. Okay, and now we're going to set that piece aside for a moment. And I have a piece of basic black, and I'm going to bring my leaves in. I've got a little temporary adhesive on the back of that, and the same thing with a piece of Pattern Party designer paper. Just a little temporary adhesive to help me out here. Let me brush first with my embossing buddy, and then we're going to put this down. Again, we'll come back and glue it permanently later. I'm just using this to help me eyeball where I'm going to stamp. And let me place this in so that everybody's here and good. No adhesive on my flower. I think that will be good. Okay, so let's grab my Versamark over here, and I've got the little detailed stamp. I don't know if you can see that here, half on my block and half off, because we're going to do the same thing with only inking the one that's on the block. You could choose to cut these apart. So I'm just setting that on my Versamark. And then I'm going to come over here, and I want this in kind of an arced shape. Let me just touch all over there to make sure all of that's made contact. Okay, oops. You need to get back down here because we've got one more to stamp. Okay, so let's ink this again. I'm just holding up that one that I'm not using so that it to the side of my block so that it can't touch, and I'm turning my stamp the other way. So I stamped this way on this side, and I'm stamping this way on the other. And though the center detail of the leaf will not run the same way, mostly it'll look like I've used a mirrored image there. Okay, let's pop these out of the way now. And we can take all of these little bits off. And we're going to sprinkle on some white Stampin' Emboss powder. It is very humid where I am today, so we're going to hope that it doesn't need to stick everywhere it's not supposed to be. Okay, so I'm going to use the point of my take your pick tool and kind of scrape this loose, what I can see here on that other image, so that we've got something that looks similar-ish. They won't be exactly the same, but that's okay. And now let's put this away and go ahead and pour this back in. And then let's bring in my heat tool. And I'm going to heat it, and I'm going to blow from behind in an effort to blow less of the embossing powder around on top of my dark cardstock. Almost done. You can see it turning there. Just have to be a little patient. Okay. And then I'm going to take this and use an embossing folder, and I'll be right back. So I used the Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder, which gives some really nice, fine texture for this. I did spritz it with alcohol so that I get a little deeper impression. That's helpful with when you're using particularly a finely detailed embossing folder. And I'm going to attach it to a piece of Flirty Flamingo. Now, the Tasteful Texture embossing folder and the Pattern Party designer paper we're using, as well as the Batik Boutique stamp set, are all retiring with the current Stampin' Up! Annual catalog. However, the last I checked, they're all still available in my store, so you can use the link in the description below to find them. Okay, so then let's bring our card base in and finish the inside of that. It's basic black, and I've got a piece of basic white, and then another strip of that Pattern Party designer paper and a strip of Flirty Flamingo for the inside. And the first thing I want to do is adhere these two pieces together. And you'll notice it's a little longer on one end. That's all good, because we'll fix that with the little touch-up that we'll do as soon as these are adhered to the inside. I'd rather be a little long than short. So let's add this now. And this gives us a little oomph on the inside of our cards, and it's so easy to do. And we all have the scraps of designer paper and cardstock to do it with. Okay, and I'm just giving this a shove over to the left a little bit. Love my multi-purpose glue since I've got the wiggle room. And now I'll just use the side of my layer as my guide to do the trim. And then let's add the multi-purpose glue to the back here. Got a little carried away there. Too much of a blob. You only need a tiny, like, hairline of this. We'll straighten up that base and add this to the inside. So pretty. Okay. Now let's build the front of our card. And maybe before I go any further, I should add this piece of Pattern Party designer paper to the front of my card. Again, just using multi-purpose glue. And let's make sure that's straight. And pop this on here. Oops, not quite straight. There we go. That looks about right. And now we'll use those dimensionals. I'm going to use black dimensionals under here. That way the white won't be screaming out from underneath my layer when you look at the card. I love having the black dimensionals when I'm working with a darker card or darker card elements, since you can see that there's dimension, but those, even when you look sideways, you're not seeing those dimensionals, and I love that. Okay, so now we need to put our other elements on, and let me grab my black mini dimensionals. And I'm just going to add a couple of those to my stem here. And again, I'm using the black here since I'm going down onto the dark layer. Just making sure because I've been a little sloppy with placement, making sure they're not going to be peeking out. And before I press this down hard, I want to see that my flower is going to have plenty of room, and it is. And then I'm going to use full-size dimensionals on this piece. Let's pop these out of the way. Okay, that looks straight. And then let's do some light embellishment. For that, I'm going to use the silver from the Silver and Clear Epoxy Essentials. These two are retiring. And I'm just going to put some of these little silver dots on here. Nice little blingety this little diamond element mimics the shape in the designer paper down below. And we'll do one more. Maybe not. I think maybe that's got it. I was going to do another pair, but I think that will take care of that. And then one more little element For that, we're going to use some of the black baker's twine from the Baker's Twine Essential Pack. Now, I hadn't originally intended to add any of this, but it needs one more little thing, and this is it. So let me show you how we're going to get around adding this late. So I'm going to put my end of my baker's twine right in the mini glue dot, and then I'm going to take this and let's turn this end around. I love my little spatula end, and we're going to tuck this right in behind my layer here. Okay, and then we're just going to take it and squeeze and pull my spatula out, and that end is stuck now. Yay. And then let's trim this end off with, I need to pull this so that I've got enough to stick in there and not too much. And we're going to do the same thing to fix the second. Oops, I do prefer the pointed end to pick up the glue dots. And let's stick this on my glue dot, and then I'm going to take your pick around to the spatula end and take this on the spatula. And again, I've just twisted it around that spatula, and I'm going to pull it and tuck it in here, and let's make sure that it's straight. And pull and press, and there we go. I just think that last little bit of baker's twine was the little something more that it needed. Thanks for stopping in today to check out my Batik Boutique card. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your card making friends. If you need any of today's Stampin' Up! Products, you can find a link in the description below that you can use if you're in the United States. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell, and you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Have a great day. Bye.